When I was 11 years old, I had two best friends, and they were complete and total opposites. Deborah was outspoken and bold, the fourth child of two wealthy, sports-obsessed doctors. Chantelle was thoughtful and cautious, the only daughter of a waitress who never seemed to catch a break. It may be that the only thing we have in common is a terrifying experience that linked us together for life. It started, as these things often do, with an unexpected, last-minute change of plans. Normally, the three of us had a sleepover at least once a month. We always tried to go to Deborah's. What kid wouldn't? There were hills for sledding in winter, a rec room in the basement for rainy spring days, a fireplace to tell scary stories around in fall, and in summer, a sparkling pool out back. To us, it was paradise. We tried my place a few times, but the disappointment I saw, or imagined, on my friends' faces as I showed them around the shabby little apartment that made a knot in my stomach, and I was relieved when they left. We'd never even been to Chantelle's until that fateful Saturday in June. My parents were out of town, and the original plan was that we'd stay at Deborah's all weekend, until Deborah's mom came down with a nasty flu and banned guests from her home. Under the circumstances, Chantelle's mother reluctantly allowed us over. When we stepped down from the bus, I thought we'd made a mistake. There was only a highway and pine trees. Chantelle took a deep breath, as though preparing for something, and led us to a narrow concrete drive almost hidden by the forest. Deborah and I exchanged a glance, but there was nothing to do but follow our friend down the dark lane. Under the shadowy branches, the air was cooler. It smelled like sap and wet dirt. The dilapidated trailer at the end of the drive was so hemmed in by trees that the branches scraped the windows, and junk rotted in heaps in the tall grass. But there were cheerful Christmas lights strung around the sagging porch, and Chantelle's mom smiled and waved as we approached. She talked our ears off as soon as we stepped inside, and before long we were chowing down on tomato soup and toasted cheese that she'd clearly made especially for our visit. Before long, she gave Chantelle a kiss on the cheek, told us to watch out for rusty nails outside, and headed to her third shift job at the hospital. She turned suddenly at the door. "Chantelle, remind them not to let anyone in, no matter how loud they knock or how scary they sound, or who they say they are. If they're meant to be in here, they'll have a key." As the door closed, I noticed that the peephole in the door was plugged shut, and curtains covered every window. It seemed very odd to me, but everyone had some quirks, right? And before long, we were having more fun than we'd ever had at Deborah's, running through the misty trees and catching lightning bugs. Twilight came early in the woods. Back inside, we were sprawled out on the shag carpet surrounded by a pillow fort and unhealthy snacks, laughing as we flipped through weird old magazines. Deborah's parents were overprotective, and in my neighborhood, it wasn't safe to leave a kid at home alone, so this was the first time we had spent a night without adult supervision. The feeling that we could do literally anything without a chance of getting caught was so exhilarating that I barely noticed Chantelle methodically checking the doors and blinds to make sure that everything was completely shut. The first knock could have been anything. We were laughing so hard that we barely even heard it. Chantelle told us to hush and stood up suddenly. "What crawled up your butt and died?" Deborah asked, which only made us laugh harder. Her face serious as stone, Chantelle clasped a hand over Deborah's mouth, ignoring her muffled protests. That snapped me out of it. I realized that the drone of insects from the forest had stopped completely. Something was wrong. It was quiet enough that there was no mistaking the next pattern. Tap, tap, tap on the front door. "Seriously, Chantelle, what is wrong with you?" Deborah giggled, twisting free of her weaker friend. We shushed at her furiously. Knock, 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 knock. The sound was more insistent now, like an angry neighbor wanting to make a noise complaint. "Let's go to my room," Chantelle suddenly announced in a whisper. "Please." Deborah and I exchanged another glance, then shrugged. Chantelle turned off the lights and the television. Something like instinct compelled us to move quietly, and our attempts to tiptoe made the ramshackle trailer seem especially empty and silent. I felt cold sweat trickle down my spine each time the floor cracked. For some reason, my eyes kept darting to the curtain windows, and I'd swear I heard a faint tapping at each window as we passed it, as if there was a little boy outside throwing pebbles. Chantelle let out a sigh of relief as we entered her bedroom and shut the door, apparently glad to have another barrier between us and whatever was outside. We didn't say much as Chantelle got out an old board game, Candyland, I think, and began to set it up. Before long, Deborah and Chantelle started to whisper, giggle, and then finally talk normally again. But I couldn't calm down. It was too strange. I thought about the TV show, Cops, and psycho ex-boyfriends who came back to attack the family. Then I mentally replayed every horror movie I'd seen about crazy people who live deep in the woods. Chantelle, at least, seemed to think the danger had passed. She was tossing dice at Deborah's head. I wanted to ask her if the knocking was a regular occurrence, but I was scared. Scared that talking about it might somehow make it real. About 40 minutes later, we heard pounding on the door. This time, we all made a point to ignore it and go on with our game. It worked, until the doorbell started ringing. The classic ding-dong didn't seem that menacing, but Chantelle had gone pale. I remembered then that the trailer didn't have anything so fancy as a doorbell out front. It was getting louder now, too, echoing down the empty hallways. "Chantelle," I whispered. "What's going on?" "I don't know," my friend finally responded. "As long as I can remember, wherever we've lived, there's been this knocking sometimes. Mom doesn't like to talk about it. She says as long as you don't react, it goes away eventually, and it always does. It can get really bad though. One time it went on for hours. I swear I could actually see the dust and spiders getting knocked out of the walls." She gave us a nervous little smile. "Sometimes a voice asks for you or calls for help. Sometimes it seems to be someone you know. The doorbell though, that's new. Well, you can't let it walk all over you for the rest of your life." Deborah stopped chewing her bubblegum and gave us a serious glare. The tapping continued in the background, almost like a drumbeat. "Deborah," Chantelle warned, but our headstrong friend had already grabbed a taped-up hockey stick from Chantelle's closet and flung open the bedroom door. "Hey," Deborah bellowed. "Whatever it is, we aren't interested." The tapping stopped. The silence deepened. Deborah smirked. "See, I keep telling you, you've just got to stand up for your..." Chantelle wasn't exaggerating when she said the blows were hard enough to shake the walls. The wall up the house took was so hard it created clouds of dust. I screamed. Chantelle hid under the bed, and Deborah used the hockey stick to smash a centipede as it fled across the room. The blows came one after another, as if a huge invisible hand was slapping the house. I joined Chantelle under the bed, grabbing tight to the carpet with my eyes shut tight. I tried not to feel the tiny legs of spiders scurrying over me. Every living thing was trying to escape the house. "Deborah," Chantelle hissed, "shut the door and get down here." "I'm gonna call your mom," Deborah shouted from the hallway. "Or the police, or somebody." "It won't do any good," Chantelle murmured. The knocking came from everywhere now. The windows, the back door, even from the trapdoor to the attic. It's never been this bad, She shouldn't have said anything. I tried to call. All I heard on the phone line was a doorbell that wouldn't stop ringing. Deborah said in a small voice as she slid under the bed with us. The lights flickered. I don't think they're gonna go away this time, Chantelle sniffled. Not until they get what they came for. You guys are my best friends in the world, you know that? Don't come out, no matter what. Before we could stop her, Chantelle darted from the bed and out the bedroom door, which she locked behind her with an old-fashioned key. Deborah charged, pounded on the door, demanded to know where she thought she was going, but it was obvious to me even before I heard the front door creak open. The knocking stopped immediately. Deborah and I tried to quiet our panting breaths, waiting. It's okay, guys. You can come out now, Chantelle called out after what felt like hours. We looked at each other and stayed put. Seriously. There were a few gentle taps on the bedroom door. Open up, guys. It's fine. Why don't you use your key? Deborah muttered. There was a pause. I don't want to be alone out here. Please. There was a noise like a child's hands patting the door, searching for a weak spot. Please let me in. The patting became pounding. Let me in. Let me in. Let me in. Let me. I don't know how long it went on for, or how Deborah and I managed to fall asleep in each other's arms under the bed, where Chantelle's mom found us the next morning. She called the police immediately, of course, but there was no sign of Chantelle or even any damage to the house. The sobbing, incoherent story we told was little help to the officers, and at one point we were accused of making it all up. Perhaps foolishly, Chantelle's mother told the police about the strange knocking and supported our story. We never found out exactly how much she knew, because with no other suspect, she became the target of the investigation. The smiling, talkative woman who made us soup and sandwiches was found guilty for her daughter's murder. The house and the land were sold and turned into warehouses. The missing persons flyers faded and disappeared, and little by little, the world forgot about Chantelle. Deborah and I, however, couldn't forget, even if we'd wanted to. Whatever had taken Chantelle had heard Deborah's voice, and it wasn't going to let us go so easily.